Boy, this is a true pleasure for me. We have 9-time Pro Bowler, former Dallas Cowboy on the phone, Randy White. Randy, I know I live in Chicago, but growing up, I was a tried and true Cowboy fan. I loved watching you guys play.
Well, I tell you what, we had some great rivalries with the Bears, and they had some great football teams, and it was always a lot of fun competing against them.
Now, you're a Delaware guy. How did you not end up at Penn State?
Well, actually, I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I grew up mostly in Delaware, but all my family was from Pennsylvania. But Penn State really never even looked at me in high school. I never really had an offer for them. I had 3 offers. I had Arizona State, Virginia Tech, and Maryland. And Maryland was the closest one to where I grew up, so that's where I ended up going.
So you didn't pick Arizona State for the weather?
Well, it was, I hadn't been a whole lot of places, and, we went to Arizona State for a visit, and actually, when I visited Arizona State, Mike Hartenstein, who ended up being a Bear who played for Penn State, Mike and I were roommates at that visit out at Arizona State, and then we were roommates in the college all-star game. So, but Maryland was close to home. That was the main reason why I ended up going there.
Okay. And your coach was Jerry Claiborne?
My first year, we had a guy named Roy Lester, who was the coach. And my first visit, when I went there, sat down with the coach. My dad was with me, and Roy Lester, I remember he sat down and he told me, he said, well, I don't know if you can play college football for the University of Maryland. He says, but we're going to give you a scholarship. So I said, well, that's good. I'm glad you're giving me one. And anyway, he was gone that next year, and then Coach Claiborne, I had him from my sophomore, junior, and senior year, which was really I didn't realize at the time, what kind of a foundation I was getting to move on and play on the professional level with Coach Claiborne. But he was a great coach, a real disciplinarian, and I learned a lot about football playing for him.
And then you get drafted by the Cowboys. If things would have went a little differently, you could have played for the Bears if the Cowboys would have taken Walter Payton, and you could have been reunited with your college quarterback, Bob Avellini. Well,
right. And I always said if the Cowboys had it to go over again, they probably would have taken Walter Payton instead of me. But, that's the way it worked out. And I ended up a Dallas Cowboy. The Baltimore Colts had the number 1 pick in the draft that year. And, Joe Thomas was the general manager, and he would come down to Maryland and say, Randy, we're taking you the first pick. Randy, we're taking you the first pick. Even up to the day before the draft. And at the last minute, they traded their number 1 pick to Atlanta, and Atlanta took Steve Bartkowski. Dallas had the number 2 pick from their trade they made. They traded Craig Morton to the Giants, and they had the number 2 pick in the draft, and they chose me. That's how I ended up being a Cowboy.
I have to think the Cowboys were fairly happy with the way it turned out, even if they didn't get Walter Payton, though.
Well, it worked out good for both of us, but Walter was a great player and a great guy. We came out of school at the same year. I got to know Walter playing in the East-West Shrine game and the college all-star game, and then competed against him over the years. And he was if he's not the best, I mean he's right there with the best of all time, in my opinion.
And then when you went to the Cowboys, they had you playing middle linebacker. Why was that?
Well, Leroy Jordan was getting ready to retire, and Coach Landry was the one that kind of invented the middle linebacker spot with Sam Huff up there with the Giants. And I guess they felt like I was 6'4", I weighed 260 pounds, and I could run a 4.6 40. They felt like I would be an excellent middle linebacker for them. But that experiment didn't work out. The flex defense was a little different than playing in the conventional 4-3 defense. The keys the middle linebacker had to make, and his reaction time, and a lot of involvement in the pass coverage, and it just never really became a natural position to me. Most of the time I was a beat off because I was thinking. And my third year in the league, Coach Landry called me in at camp, and he said, he actually asked me, he said, Randy, we're thinking about moving you to defensive tackle. How do you feel about that? And I said, Coach, I said, I just want to play football, and wherever you think I can help this football team win, I said, that's where I'm going to play. But, really, I had moved from middle linebacker to strong side linebacker to weak side linebacker. I was running out of spots. So when he said, he said, you don't want to play defensive line, I said, sure. That was, when I moved into that spot, I was always undersized for the defensive tackle position, but, it was a natural position for me, and I felt like somebody took the handcuffs off of me, and I could go play football the way I knew how to play. So, that was a good moment for me when Coach Landry switched me.
So rather than follow in the footsteps of Leroy Jordan, you got to follow in the football cleats of Bob Lilly.
Yeah, I had to go from either Leroy, but we had a middle linebacker, Bob Brunick, who was excellent middle linebacker, and he just stepped right in there, and that was his natural position. But you're right. Then I go in there to the right defensive tackle spot, and I had some success, and they started mentioning my name with Bob Lilly, and I said, whoa! I said, wait a minute. I said, if I can do this for 14 years like Bob did, I said, then go ahead and mention my name with him. But Bob Lilly's Mr. Cowboy, and as far as I'm concerned, he's the greatest Cowboy ever played on Roger Staubach. And, we had a lot of great ones, but, Bob's right up there.
That line was tough, though, with you and Harvey Martin and Ed Too Tall Jones.
Yeah, and then, we had Larry Coe and Jethro Pugh split time at the left side. And then, Jethro retired and Larry retired, and we got John Dutton from the Colts, who was an all-pro defensive end, and John moved into that tackle spot. So we had a pretty good defensive line back then.
You had a pretty good defensive team overall and a pretty good offensive team overall. You end up in a Super Bowl early on in your career. You figure, okay, this is going to be a yearly sort of thing?
Well, yeah. We did. We had a great group, a lot of talent. We got along. We had a great team. And you're right. I went to the Super Bowl my rookie year. I went there my third year. I went there my fourth year. And I thought, well, we'll get back to the Super Bowl. But, I think, what are we playing? 3 NFC championship games. And, I played for 14 years, and we never got another opportunity to play in the Super Bowl. So, if you get an opportunity to play in that Super Bowl, savor that moment, because you never know when it's going to come back around.
You did pretty well in that Super Bowl, though, winning the MVP award. Did you see that coming, or did that come as a surprise to you?
No, not at all. That was the furthest thing from my mind. I wasn't even thinking about that. But Ed Jones had a great game that day. We had a defensive, our strong safety, a guy named Randy Hughes. I think he intercepted 2 passes in the first half. So, and Roger Staubach could have been there could have been a lot of guys that were most valuable players in that game. But, Harvey and I had a big day that day, and, we got chosen to co-MVPs. I remember I was standing on the sidelines, and it was at the end of the game, and Harvey came over to me, and he said, hey, we're chosen MVPs in the game. And, it never even sunk into me. The big thing was winning the Super Bowl because, I played against Pittsburgh my rookie year in the Super Bowl. And, the most exciting thing I remember about that was at the after-game party, Willie Nelson and Willie Jennings and Jimmy Buffett were there, and we got up and sang with them on stage after the game. So, but then having the chance to go back to the Super Bowl and win and get a Super Bowl ring, that was a great experience.
So as a co-MVP, did you get half a car?
No, you know what? Actually, they gave each of us a new car. Harvey and I went to New York, and we each got a new Thunderbird. And I thought they gave you the car, it was yours. Well, I found out at the end of the year that, you had the use of the car for a year. Then you had an option to buy it at the end of the year, or you could turn it back in. So that was a little disappointing.
Nowadays, if you would be the MVP, you get to go to Disney World, make commercials, get a ton of money. Well,
it's definitely turned into something more than it was. mean, it was great back then, but now, I mean, it's like the Super Bowl is what it is. I mean, it's like the greatest sporting event of all time every year. So, but it was wonderful. It was a great experience when we had it, when I played in the Super Bowls.
What was the adjustment like going from Maryland, where I assume football is fairly big, to Dallas, where it's just monstrously huge, and
Well,
all the fans and everything?
Well, at that time, when you're going from college to the pros, I was just concerned about having a chance to make the football team. And, that's what I was worried about. I wasn't thinking about the fans or all the other, what it meant to play for the Dallas Cowboys. But, over time you start to realize that. But, my main thing when I first went down there was, what I got to do to stick around here for a while. That's what I want to do, make the football team. And then, like you said before, that middle linebacker spot for a couple of years was kind of frustrating for me. And then finally my third year, I got, started, being able to play the football the way I like to play it.
We've talked to several former Cowboys, and they all say that Tom Landry was a true gentleman. He never swore, but he had control of the team, and everyone played hard for him.
Coach Landry was, he was a great football coach. He did a lot of things to change the game. I mean, with the defense and with the offense. But as far as a person, I mean, he was a great example. He was a real Christian man, and he just didn't talk the talk. He walked the walk, just like you say. In 14 years, a lot of things about him were special and impressive, but for me, 14 years, I never one time saw him lose his temper or be out of control. Now, he would get angry and he would not be happy, but he didn't do it with yelling and screaming. He had a way of getting his point across to you just by looking at you, and you knew he wasn't he is definitely a special person.
What was it like when the Cowboys got rid of him?
Well, I mean, that was a tough time for everybody when when the ownership changed and Coach Landry was gone, and that was kind of a hard transition. But Coach Landry used to tell us all the time. He said, "One thing you could be sure of, things will change," and sure enough, they do. But Jerry Jones bought the team and came in there and took them to 3 Super Bowls. They won 3 Super Bowls, and so that was tough though when Coach Landry left. But I mean, the time heals all that, and you pull for them, you want them to win, and Jerry, I think, is one of the best owners in the league. I mean, he really takes care of his players. He does everything he can to put the best football team on the field, and but that was tough back then.
Was it as tough as losing to the 49ers in that championship game with the catch?
Nothing's that tough. That's something that'll haunt. Whenever you think about the football or talk about it, that you never talk about the good things or the championship things. You talk about the like that game with the Cats. For me, that second time we played the Steelers, I had a broken thumb and I fumbled a kickoff, and Jarrella Squig kicked the ball to me. I picked it up and started running with it and fumbled the ball. Pittsburgh recovered, and I think 2 plays later they scored a touchdown. Jackie Smith, everybody looked at him like he dropped that pass in the end zone, and that's what made us lose. But, there's a lot of other things happening in that football game too.
Yeah, but there's certain plays that just stand out, and I think in Jackie Smith's case, it's unfortunate that that's what a lot of people remember him for, because he was truly a great tight end.
Oh, he was one of the best of all time. Jackie Smith was a great player, and I mean, he really helped our football team, when he came to us. So, it is unfortunate because, Jackie Smith is one of the greatest of all time. And he's in the Hall of Fame and deserves to be, and he gets his credit.
Mike Ditka was coaching down in Dallas before he came to the Bears. It seemed like the only person Ditka truly respected and would never say anything bad about and basically kind of admired was Tom Landry.
Yeah, Mike was my special teams coach for 2 years. I played for, he coached the tight ends, but he was always had the special teams. So, I got hands-on with Mike, for those 2 years. And, you're never going to meet, which everybody already knows, you're not going to meet a more competitive guy than Mike Ditka. I mean, he's hard-nosed. I always liked Mike. I always thought, I liked the way that he coached. I liked his attitude. He was an inspiration to all of us. And, but Coach Landry, I mean, anybody that was ever around him, had that kind of respect for him. I mean, I've never met anybody or talked to anybody that has one bad thing to say about Coach Landry. He was, like I said, he was a very special person.
What was Mike Ditka like as that special teams coach? Was he as over the top and outlandish as he came to be as a head coach with the Bears?
Well, I mean, Coach Landry demanded a certain amount of control in from his coaching staff, I'm sure. But, Mike was always Mike. I mean, he didn't accept anything but 100%. And, he wasn't afraid to express his position on things. And if you made a mistake, you knew you were going to hear about it. But, that's what made him a great coach. And, he's a special guy too. Mike is too.
How much did you love playing the Bears, going up against Bob Avellini? They call him Slow-Mo, his teammates, knowing that you could sack that guy at any time.
Oh, you couldn't sack him at any time. But, I knew Bob from college, and, he wasn't the most mobile quarterback that ever played, but he could sure throw that football. And, but, anytime we played against the Bears, I mean, it was always a dogfight. The Bears are the Bears. When you get in a game with the Bears, especially when when I played, when Mike went to coach the Bears, they adopted his personality, and you were going to be in a dogfight no matter what happened in that football game.
Who gave you the most trouble to go up against?
A guy the guy named Bob Young that used to play for the St. Louis Cardinals gave me as hard a time as any in the running game. In the pass rush, I could pretty much pass rush against, the best of them. But, I played against John Hanna. I played against Mike Webster. I tell you what, a guy that used to give me a hard time used to play for the Bears, a guy named Noah Jackson. I don't know if you all remember Noah. He was a left guard. Buddha. And I tell you, they called him Buddha. And he had that big belly. But I tell you what, he was an artist that, the flex, we keyed the head of the guard a lot. And I tell you what, he must have studied it, because he would give me head fakes. And when I played him, he cut me he had me on the ground more than anybody I ever played against, and then they had Walter Payton running the football, which made it that much harder. But, Noah Jackson was pretty tough guard too.
I'll tell you what, your quarterback wasn't too bad either. I kind of felt sorry for him at times, taking over after Roger Staubach, but Danny White, he just seemed to get it done.
Yeah, Danny White, he had to follow Roger Staubach, and who can fit in those shoes? I mean, Roger was Roger, and people expected Danny to do the things Roger did, and he's Danny White. He's not Roger Staubach, but Danny was an excellent quarterback. Like I said, we went to the playoffs every year. We went to 3 NFC championship games, and the quarterback, they don't win or lose them by themselves. It takes a whole team effort. So, but Danny was a great quarterback also.
Now, you got to play in a pretty nice place at Texas Stadium. What do you think of the new Cowboys arena?
Oh, it's I don't know what you want to say. I mean, it's like a spectacle. I mean, it's a great stadium. It's great for them players to have an opportunity to play there. I mean, for the fans, you got a great place to go watch a football game. I mean, it's an experience to go to that stadium. It really is. It's something special.